Hello everyone. Hi. Any questions for me before I get started?
Muted. Hi Arun.
Hi Dana.
Can you just explain the dialect in that XML file, the dialect property?
Oh, that is like, which is converting. See, normally on the console you are getting those SQL queries, right?
Yeah.
So dialect is the one which acts like an intermediate between your Java program and JDBC. Actually, every Hibernate call gets converted into JDBC call, and every Hibernate query gets converted into native SQL again. So your dialect is like a mechanism. It's like a program which will convert your Hibernate calls into respective JDBC calls, and then vice versa. So they have, like, if you remember what is driver. Driver is like an interface, right? Okay. I hope you can hear me now. And the way you have got a driver, the driver acts like an interface between what? Database and Java program. Your dialect acts like an interface between Hibernate and a Hibernate and what? Hibernate and a database. So you'll have different dialects for every database. For Oracle you write Oracle dialect. For MySQL you have MySQL dialect. So there's a huge list of dialects for every database. I shared some PDF files. In one of the PDF files it has listed down all the dialects for every database. Okay, let's look into that. Yeah. Any other questions, guys, with respect to Hibernate? Alright, if no questions, I would like to solve one activity for you. I would like to do it with JDBC. I also like to do the same thing with Hibernate and with web application. So I have some tables. I'll just show you the table structures for you. Here is one table. This is another. This is another. So what I have in total is, I have three tables. The user table stores the user data. The book table holds the book data. The user underscore book table will hold the information which user has placed order for the books. The user underscore book table will give you information which user has placed the order of the books. So I have some data here in every table. I have two records in user table. I have two records in user table. I got three records in book table. I got four records in user underscore book table. So there are two users and both the users has placed the order for the books. So let me add one more record there. Insert into user. So I have this. So I have three records in the user table and there is a user with the ID 4. He didn't place any orders. He didn't place any orders so far. Now I want to know which user has placed the records. I want to know which users has placed the record so far. Yeah, I got it. So far only two users has placed the order for the books. So user ID 1 and user ID 2 are the only two people who placed the order for the books. So from which table you are able to get this information? You are able to get this information from which table? You are able to get this information from the user underscore book table. Now I want to show the name of the person and also his what? Email address. So I need to fetch the data from two tables. So what should be the query? Select ID, first name, last name, email address, gender, from table. What is the table name? User, where ID in select listing user ID from user underscore book. Yeah. So you got the information, right? So what did you do? You wrote something called nested. Alright, so your outer query is depending on the inner query result. Your outer query is depending on the inner query result. The one which is in the parenthesis will give you the IDs of the customers who placed the orders. Now outer query depending on the inner query result, for every customer ID I get their first name, last name, email address and gender. So this is one way. The other way I'll tell you. Select u.id, u.first name, u.last name, u.email address, u.gender from alias name for user table, alias name for user book table, where u dot id equal to ub dot user id. So this is join, equi-join. But what happens? What happens here? You get something like data duplication, right? Every time the customer order place, you fetch his record. Because if you observe, what is the, I hope you understood the difference between both the queries. When we use join, what is happening? What is happening? Because in the user underscore book table, the ID 1 appears twice and ID 2 appears twice. So when you are using this equi-join, every time the ID occurs, you are fetching it. So this query also holds good. This is also a right way of doing it, right? But the problem here is for every book you are fetching the customer details. Whereas when you use inner query, what is happening? When we use inner query, what is happening? You are saying using the keyword distinct there. So using the keyword distinct there. So there is an advantage and disadvantages of both. If you use the previous one, you get only the customer details. But in the current one, what you can do is, you are fetching what? You are fetching the user details for every book. So what I can do here is, I can also add the information what book he added, what book he bought, comma, UB, okay. There will be one more table I would like to join. B dot name, B dot price, UB dot quantity. So there is two tables already. I'll add one more table. Yuan underscore book B. Here, alright, and B dot ID is UB dot book ID. Now what happens? You got here user ID 1, Arun Khan. Alright. He ordered a book called C, whose price is 200 and the number of quantity is 5. And the quantity is what? 5. Then again, user ID 2, Kiran Khan, ordered a book called C++. Each unit cost 300 and the quantity he ordered is 10. So what is happening here? This stuff is only possible with the help of joins. This stuff is only possible with the help of what? With the help of joins. This stuff is only possible with the help of what? With the help of the joins actually. So first let me accomplish this task with the help of JDBC. So here I have created a project called Servlet Hibernate. Then I go to Java resources. Then I have a package structure, controller, DTO, alright, and all the stuff. Then here I'll create, there should be 3 videos completely. Here we go. I create a class, I'll say user. I'll create something called as a user. I'll create another one called as a book. Okay. You got a user, you also got a book. Right. There are 2 objects for you. Here we go. Survey int ID, survey string name, survey double price. Right click, source, getters and setters. Yeah. Right. And you also generate the constructors. You have constructor using fields, and you can also have constructor without fields. You have a lot of options here. Now let's go to the user. What all I have? I have private int ID, first name, last name, email address, password, gender. First name, last name, email address, and what? So you also have something called date of birth. Then right click, source, getters and setters, and constructor using fields. Constructor using fields. Constructor using what? Constructor using fields, and constructor without fields also will have. Done. Now, but who will hold this information? Which user has purchased what books? Which user has purchased what books? Who will keep track of this information? Then what should be the ideal name for it? What should be the ideal name for it? So what I do is, inside this user, the user can purchase many books, right? User can purchase many books, right? So what I'll be doing here is, okay, but yeah, I think I need to create one more Pojo, because this you have an extra column. You have a user ID, you have a book ID, you also have a quantity. You have a user ID, you have a book ID, you also have a quantity. So since you also have a quantity, alright, so what exactly I thought of doing is, inside the user, I thought of declaring an array list of book type, right? Why I thought of doing this? I thought of doing an array list inside a book. I thought of creating an array list of book type inside a user, because a user can hold multiple books. A user can hold multiple books. So I thought of creating an array list of type book. But if you create an array list of type book, you can only tell this book is being held by user. That is, this user purchases so and so book, you can tell. But will you be able to tell what is the quantity he owns? What is the quantity he owns? We will not be able to do this. So guys, I'll tell you what exactly I meant here. Now, so there is a user. I'm creating a user object. So what happens when I create a user object? There is an ID for him. There is a first name for him. There is a last name for him. Okay, let the ID be 1. First name be Arun. Last name be Daud. Then comes what? Email address. Then you got a password. Then what do we have? Gender. Then date of birth. Fine. Then there is an array list, right? So what exactly happens? It's a book list. Now what is book list? It's a collection of books. So how many books this user has purchased? The user 1 has purchased 2 books. So this book list will have 2 books. First book 1 object. Now what is the book 1? Book ID 1 he purchased, and it is a C programming, and fine. This is what book 1 tell you. Okay, and what is the price of it? 200. Then this fellow Arun also holds a book 2. The ID 2 C++. What is the cost? 300. But how many number of C programming books he holds? How many number of C++ programming books he holds? Easy maintaining that information. How many C programming books he owns? How many C++ programming books he owns? Is that information being maintained? No, it's not maintained. So my intention or my analysis of going with the array list of book type is wrong. My analysis of going with the array list of book type is wrong. My analysis of going with the array list of book type is wrong. And what should I do? I should create one more entity. Let's name it as, normally this class name should be nouns. Alright, so we should pick up a noun, but I don't get any noun here. So what we call, I just go with purchased books. Alright. And class names cannot be plurals also. But I just go with still books only, purchased books, but it's not something good. They cannot be plurals. here. Now what I do here is I'll maintain a user ID. Okay, private int user ID, private int book ID, private int quantity. Now right click, source, getters and setters. Perfect. Then you can also have constructors. You can also have a constructor with no arguments. Guys, every time I create a constructor with arguments, I create a constructor with no arguments, because when you don't define any constructor, compiler provides a default. But when you do, compiler don't provide a default. When you define a constructor, compiler don't provide a default. So I have a constructor and I have three classes in total. Now in this user.java, I want to maintain the array list of purchased books. I want to maintain the array list of purchased books. And for that, I want to have a getter and setter. Source, getter and setter. Perfect. I want to hold getters and setters as generator. So everything seems to be good so far. So let me write a connection as well as a DAO program. So what I do is I just go to the previous things to get the connection. Only I can get the connection. Rest of the programs I need to write it again. I'm sorry. So you have a JDBC connection. So database connection you got it. And what else? Now let me create a DAO class user DAO. Now what I want to do, let's make it as DAO itself. Let's not make it as a user DAO. Refactor rename. Now here I would like to define a method. Get users who placed order or who purchased book. Get the users who purchased the book. So I want to return users. Array list of type user. Right? So here we go, import is fine. Now within the method, I have an array list of type user. Here what I'm returning, I'm only returning the purchased users list. Right. I'm getting the purchased user list. I'm getting the purchase user list. Now here I need to establish this connection and all the stuff. Connection is null. Request statement is null. And you also need a result set. Null. And first obtain the connection. You got the connection. Now you need to prepare your query. What is the query you want to prepare? You want to combine all the three tables to get this right. Create statement is connection dot prepare statement. You can write your entire query here. You have an exception. Surround with try catch. So you loaded a driver and you established a connection. Then you get what? You get a user ID, first name, last name, email address, gender, and you got the name of the book, you got the price of the book, and you get the quantity of the book, right? But where do I hold this information? Because in the user, right, in the user, or you can say here, in the user you can hold only, you have a purchased books. And in the purchased books, what do you have? In the purchased books, you have only user ID, book ID, and the quantity. You have a user ID, book ID, and the quantity, right? You have a user ID, book ID, and the quantity. So what we can do is, instead of, we need what? If I'm fetching the information, I also want to fetch the user information. I also want to fetch the book information. I want to fetch the user information. I also want to fetch the book information. So here what I'll be doing is, instead of having a user ID and book ID, instead of having a user ID and book ID, instead of having a user ID and a book ID, what I do is provide book, provide user. So I click source, getters, and setters. Perfect. Now you will understand why I did that. Instead of going with a book ID and this stuff, why did I go with that? You will understand that soon. And here, instead of returning an array list, here I change get purchased books, and here also I change to get purchased books. purchased goods. Now let me have a result set. Prepared statement dot execute query. Now it's a while. That next. You confirm whether records exist or not. Before that you check whether result set is not null. If the result set is not null, then allocate the memory for array list. It's done. Now if there is a record, then I allocate memory for each purchased book. Then in that purchased book, you have a book object as well as what? User object. You have a book object as well as user object. So you create a user object first. And to that user object, what are the things you want to pass? Set the ID, result set dot get int of 1. What is your first column here? User ID. So you are storing into what? User object. That is ID of the user object. Then you have first name, result set dot get string of 2, user dot set last name. So result set dot get string of 3. Then you got an email address, user dot set email address. Result set dot get string of 4, user dot set gender. Result set dot get string of 5. So with this, all the user details is done. Now that user details you add it to the purchase book. Purchase book dot set user. Done. Now what next? You create a book object. Now after creating a book object, b dot name, b dot price, b dot quantity, right? Oh, you have a book object here. Okay. So I'm not fetching the book ID. Of course, I don't need it also. User ID also I'm not interested because customers, end users will not have idea about the ID. Book dot set name. It is result set dot get string of 6. Then book dot set price. Result set dot get double of 7. Done. Then you add it, add the book to it, set book. It's done. Then you have to set the quantity. Purchase book dot set quantity. Result set dot get int of column 8. So what did you do? For every purchased book, there will be a user, there will be a name and the price. So you did this stuff. You set this. Alright, and you add this to the array list. Purchased books list dot add purchase book. That's it. And at the end, what you return? Purchase books list. Your job is done. So you have a DAO which will get, so you just need to analyze, how exactly you want to view the data. You want to know, right, what exactly end user want to see. End user want to see this data. This first name, last name, email address, and he purchased a book of each unit price and the number of quality he purchased. So this is what a end user want to see. This is what a end user want to see. So accordingly, I design my data objects. I have a book object which is holding the book information. I have a user object which is holding the user information. I have a user object which is holding the user information. Then I have one more called purchase book, which got user object as well as book object. User object will tell you which user has purchased which book. And there is one more attribute called quantity which will tell you number of same books you purchased. Now look at this part. So let me design one HTML. With just the submit button I want to have. I don't want to have anything else. Get purchase details. Is my HTML. And what I want to have here, I want to have a form. Then I just want to have what? The submit button. Then here it's gonna be a get purchase detail. I got a new servlet. Next, you got your controller. And what else? This controller, you call it. There is no input. So you just need to create object for a DAO. And what is that DAO? It's in the JDBC DAO. It's just a DAO object I'm creating. Then under DAO I'm calling the method get purchase books along with their owner. It returns an array list of 5 purchase books. Then you store that in the request object. And you pass it on to your JSP. Request dot get request dispatcher request response. So let's say display date.jsp. So in the web content, let me create a file, a JSP file. Then I would like to use JSTL. Here we go. Web content, web INF, lib. I pick those two jar files and result database connectivity involved OJDBC 14 months. Then I add it to the current project. Now here we go. This is your tag library because you are using some JSTL tag. So I know it's on a loop array list. It's an array list of what type. So for each loop, no, var is different. First items, dollar of, what is this? What is attribute name? Purchase books. And var, every time I get one purchase book. Let me check the length first. So in order to check the length, what should I use here? Function stack. Prefix is there. C:, if dollar of f dot length of or it is f dot length or f colon length. If it is greater than 0, then we construct a table. Then in the table you will have a table row. Within a table row you have a table header. The first table header is what? First name. Second table header is for last name, email address, gender. Then book name he purchased, book price he purchased, and the quantity he purchased. Then I put a table row here. Then table data. Purchase book dot. Purchase book dot. Username, right? User dot first name last name email address gender, book.name, book.price, and quantity. That's it. So let me run this. Run as run on server. You have an exception here. SQL exception, invalid character. So let's see what is that invalid character in the DAO. I think he also gave us the line number. $29. So here is the problem. Yeah, this semicolon is the problem. I just want to clear this. Then I just refresh it. Yeah. What is happening? It's just printing as it is, right? You got a first name, last name, email address, gender, book. Yeah, there are 4 records, but why it is showing it as understood? Here it should not be simple, it should be dollar, right? Dollar, 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 dollar. So here the only thing which you guys need to focus was this creation of the data objects. Even I didn't get the creation of data objects in first go correctly. So after I understood how to solve the problem, then I realized, oh, this is how you need to create objects. So you guys have any questions on this part, or is it simple, or is there any other better way you think we can do it? Because this is what I felt, because when I create a class called user purchase books, then I can hold user data as well as a book data. So that will tell me that so and so book has been purchased by so and so user, and the number of quantity is this. So I felt this is the best solution to see this on the screen. This user has purchased C book for the price 200 and the number of quantity he purchased is 5. 10, 10, 10. So I did this with the JDBC. So before I move on to Hibernate, you guys have any questions, or do you have any better solution than this? Okay. So I assume that you guys have no questions, then I hope you are all happy with this, the kind of approach I opted for. Now the same example, if I want to do it with Hibernate, if I want to do it with Hibernate, how should I do that? The same example, if I want to do it with the Hibernate, how do I do that? So let's go there. Now here you already have some objects, like what all you have? You have a user object and you have a PDO object, right? You have a user object, you have a user object, you have a book object, you have a purchase books object. Let me refactor this. Let's not say purchase books, it's say purchase book. So the advantage of refactor is wherever you use it as a purchase book, everywhere it gets replaced by purchase book. Now I'll tell you one more stuff here. Hibernate.davo I have, Hibernate domain I have. So first, what is this Hibernate domain? Why can't I use the same DTOs? Why can't I use the same DTOs? Instead of using the same DTOs, why I am creating it here again? Again I create a user. I create a user. I create a book. Then again I create purchase book. Now you guys need to understand why I am creating the domains again when I already have something in the form of DTO. You will understand soon. So what do you have in the book.java? I get everything as it is. Then I keep it here. Whatever I have in the user.java. So when I'm trying to maintain the same, then why I'm creating separately? Why I'm creating them separately? Your question will be answered soon. Why I'm creating two data objects? Why I am creating two data objects when I can manage only with the one? When I can manage only with the one, what is the need of creating two data objects? Now here, before I solve this example, so I have a user object, I have a book object. What do I have? I have a user object, I also have a book object. I got a user object, I also have a book object. So a user, a purchase, there is a many-to-many relationship here. There is a many-to-many relationship. What do you have here? There is a many-to-many relationship. A user can purchase many objects, or a book can be purchased by many users. A user can purchase many books, or a book can be purchased by many users. I'm trying to apply the Hibernate approach. Observe here. What did I say? I said that a user can purchase many books, or a book can be purchased by many users. So there is, what is the relationship between both, many to many? So first thing is, I need to add the jar files to the lib folder. Hibernate jar files I need to add. I go and fetch them. Hibernate jars. I fetch. I get all the jar files. Now I dump into the lib folder. So all the jar files which are needed for the Hibernate I added here. Then you all know we also need one configuration file. We all know we also need one configuration file. So I get that hibernate.cfg.xml. I also pick this. Yeah, you also have a cfg.xml. Now, what is that package structure you have? Hibernate.domain.student. Oh, it's not student. It's user. Hibernate.domain.course. Hibernate.domain.course. Oh, sorry, it's not course, right? Oh, it is. It's book. And we learned in the last class that whenever there is a many-to-many relationship, the table is automatically created. The table is automatically created. What I meant is this. What is that? The table is automatically created. When the table is automatically created, then you have your many-to-many relationship. When you have your many-to-many relationship, the table is automatically created. So let me demonstrate that. On top of this, first @entity @table name equals to divan underscore book. Then control Z @id @generated value and @column mean equals to id. So when it comes to get name, @column name equal to name. @column name equal to price. Then you got your user.java. @id generated value @column name equal to id. Now for the rest of the things, first name, last name, email address, password, gender, date of birth. This is your normal mapping. Now you need to establish the relationship between user and the books. Right? Now you need to establish the relationship between what? User and the books. You need to establish the relationship between the user and the books. So here I'll go with it. Provide hash set. In the user I am saying hash set of book type, books. And for this, jar files will be same. Doesn't matter which operating system you are using. Jar files will be same. Only the softwares which need to be installed varies. Then here I go with getters and setters. And on top of this getter method, I need to write @many to many, which I did last day. So let's look at that. This is that many to many project, right? Here we go. @many to many. What is the table name? The join table name. Join table name was user underscore book. What are the join columns? The join column name is user ID. So the join column name is ID, and inverse join column name. Oh, we have a concern here. The column names we kept it as a same. Okay, let's do this. Join column name is, what do we have? User ID. Book ID. Join column name is user ID and a book ID here. Now, similarly, I'm going to repeat the similar kind of stuff on the book table also. Now on this book table, what I do is, because user will hold the information of the books he purchased. Now book will hold the information of the user's purchase rate. Book will hold the information of the user to purchase rate. Whereas user was holding the information of the books he purchased it. Getters and setters. Okay. And on top of this getter method, here the join column is book ID, and the inverse join column is user ID. Everything is seeming to go well, alright? So here you have a book.java, you have a user.java. Right? So you got a book table, you also have a user table. You have a book table, you also have a user table. Now in this, what I want to do is, same stuff I want to do. Like, if I want to get the information, right? I want to get information. In hibernate.csv.xml, you have something as update. Hash set is used to hold, it's a collection framework, it's a collection of objects. Collection framework, it's a collection of objects. What is the significance of hash set is it don't allow duplicates. Hash set don't allow duplicates. Has set don't allow duplicates. And yeah, that's it. Has set don't allow duplicates. There is something called an array list which allow duplicates. So it's a collection of objects, and objects can be similar type or dissimilar type. But here you are restricting your hash set to user type. You are restricting your hash set to user type. So your hash set can hold only user objects. Collection framework is a collection of objects. Objects can be similar or dissimilar. But here you specified it as a user, so it only holds user objects. It only holds user objects. And here you specify it as a book, so it only holds book objects. Now let me write a Hibernate DAO program. Let's say class Hibernate DAO, and let me define the method. Whatever the method I have, I just fetch it from here. Now within this, if you observe carefully, this is something you need to pay attention. Now there is nothing called purchased book. There is nothing called purchased book. Either you need to say get users and you return a user from domain object, or either you say get books and which book I'm talking about, domain book. Array list of user type. See, I have nothing to do with the DTO. You're going to understand soon why. I'm only working on what? I'm working on the domain objects. I'm not using the DAO. I'm not using the DTO objects. I'm not using the DTO objects. Now how you do it? Session equal to new annotation configuration dot configure dot build session pack. Build session factory dot open session. Now I say session dot I need to create a query, right? Query is session dot create query, and within this from from user. That's it. Oh, it's not from user, it should be from book. And I simply say query dot list. Now this query dot list returns an array list. So you're typecasting that array list to what type? Book type. So type book type, and you're returning that book list. You're returning that book list. But the thing is, if you're returning a book list, this book is from which package? The book is from which package? It is from the domain package. The book is from the domain package. The book is from the domain package. Now I don't want to use this book on the controller. I don't want to use this book. I don't want to use this book on the controller. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just muted myself. Right now, I was trying to do what I just reiterated. But before I get okay, yeah, Ishta, do you have a question or?
No, I don't have a question now. It's a different question. I'll ask later.
Okay, okay. All right, guys. So what I was trying to do was this. I have a method. Yes, Suman.
Yeah, Jen, nothing, but
Okay.
I was not able to hear you, so now
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. So guys, what I was trying to do was, I don't want to return this domain object. See here what is happening. There is a Hibernate domain. I'm returning a list of what type, book type, But this book is of what type? Hibernate domain type. Then why did I separate the domain from DTO? Why I'm separating the domain from DTO? Because I'll tell you a reason for it. When you are using your domain, you are using some annotations here, right? But these annotations represent what? Persistence layer. This annotation represents what? Persistence layer. And instead of using this annotations on DTO, why did I develop a separate package? I reiterate my question. I can use annotations on DTO class itself. I can use annotations on DTO class itself. Instead of using annotations on DTO, why did I develop a separate package for objects? I'll tell you a reason. Because these DTO objects, they move in every layer. The DTO objects are available in JSP. Yes, you agree, right? If you look at this, in this JSP file, you are using your DTO objects. In the JSP file, you are using what? You are using your DTO objects. So in your controller, you are using your DTO objects. So when you are trying to use your DTO objects everywhere, you are making your DTO, because if you use annotations in the DTO, then you are making your presentation layer, you are making your controller layer dependent on your persistence. I reiterate the point. Instead of developing a separate package for data objects called hibernate.domain, I can use DTO objects itself. And in the DTO objects itself only I can use annotations. Annotations are specific to Hibernate. Hibernate represents persistence layer. If I use this annotations on DTO, your DTO is accessible in presentation, your DTO is accessible in controller, your DTO is accessible everywhere. Then you are making every layer dependent on persistence layer because you added this annotation. I'm here not to create dependencies. I'm here to ensure that there is a loose coupling between the components. So I have a separate package for DTO, I have a separate package for domain, and in the domain I have the data objects, and on those data objects I'm using what? I'm using the annotations of Hibernate. Now, but when who is calling your controller? Your controller is going to call your DAO, right? So when your controller calls your DAO, what happens? You are returning an array list of book type. But that book is of which type? Is it as a DTO type or is it of a domain type? It's a domain type. So there will be a dependency. So what I'm doing is, between the controller and the DAO, I'm introducing a service. Between the controller and the DAO, I'm introducing a service. Alright. Between the controller and the DAO, I'm introducing a service. Whereas, what is that service is all about? I'm introducing a service, get purchase a book or whatever I had earlier, what I have here. Yeah, get purchase of books. I'm introducing a service. Now what this service gonna do is, it's gonna convert, it is gonna get. Now observe here, this service is gonna create a Hibernate DAO object. This service is going to create a Hibernate DAO object, and on this Hibernate DAO object, it's going to call the method called getBooks. It's going to get the books of type array list of book type. But these books are what? Hibernate books. So you need to convert these Hibernate books to what? To DTO books. How will you do it? So you are defining your own method there. There is a method called convert. It will convert the Hibernate books to purchased books or the DTO books and you are returning it. You are returning that. Which one? The purchased books. Done. Now here I need to convert. So let me do the conversion process here. If books dot size greater than 0, then allocate memory. New array list. Then you get one book at a time. Now from this you get the book object. So now I am creating a DTO book. I am creating a DTO book object. I am copying the data from one to another. I am copying the data from one to another. Set name, book dot get name, book dot set price, book dot get price. Right. Now again what? DTO dot user. You are creating a DTO user object. Then to that you are doing what? You have set first name, but how do you do that? Book dot get, okay. So a book can be purchased by many users. So book dot okay. There will be another one here. Or it should be purchased books, right? So there is a book, and for this book there will be a purchased. Okay. Purchased book. Then to that purchased book you are adding. So you are setting a book. Oh, you got a set book. It's DTO book. Perfect. Now here each book can be purchased by multiple users. So DTO dot user colon book dot get users. So this, I'm sorry, this is not DTO user. This is your normal domain user. Hibernate dot domain dot user, hibernate dot domain dot book. So you get this book. Then we need to create a DTO dot user. Perfect. Now to this DTO user, you should copy all the data. Set first name, user dot get first name. In this way, you need to copy the rest of the data: first name, last name, email address, gender. Perfect. Then this is ready. Then add it to the purchased books. Set user. Then purchased books dot add purchase book. And once you complete everything, you can return the purchase book. Your job is done. Okay, so from the controller now, you won't be calling, from the controller, you won't be calling DAO directly. You won't be calling DAO directly now. Instead, you have the other way of doing it. You have a utility service, which you have written, service package. Now in that, you will be calling a method get purchased books, and that returns an array list. Your job is done. So let's see whether you succeed or not, because the only thing changes is your controller and Hibernate DAO, not your presentation. Perfect. Illegal attempt to map a non-collection as a one-to-many. Why it's a non-collection? In the user.java. Okay, I didn't specify the table names here. Okay. There's a book.java. Okay, here. Create entity, create table, name equals to, let me make another attempt. Let's clear the console. Still you have an exception. Let's see. Map a non-collection as one-to-one, many-to-one, or collection of elements. Why it's a non-collection? I have a hash set of books. Okay, and you have a getter, hash set of books. Perfect. Then in the book you have a hash set of users. Now on that hash set of users only, then I use @ many-to-many. Okay. access illegal item to map. Okay, so you got a column name price, you got a ID, you got a name, you have a create entity, you have a collection framework set, then you have a hash set of users, and you have a getter method to it. Then on top of the getter method I did this Sivan underscore user underscore book, the join table, the join column book ID, the inverse join column user ID. So things will be simplified here. Actually, you don't need to write the join statement and all the stuff. But there is a lack of knowledge of Hibernate will lead you into problems. I'm just trying to look at it. So we have a table. User input. User ID, book ID, quantity. Okay. You have a user table Mojo, you have a book Mojo. Okay, let's do this. Why don't we create something new? I was trying to make use of the existing tables. Create. Users, you have a book. Alright guys, okay, I think it's gonna take a bit long, so I'll work on it and I'll forward it to you. Alright. So you guys have any questions, I'll look into it because I need to look into this exception message and we need to figure it out. I'll help you with the solution. Right, I hope you understood what exactly I did so far. What I did was I tried to develop a Hibernate. So for persistence layer, I try to use a Hibernate. Then I cannot make use of the same data objects which I use for the JDBC because in Hibernate you specify annotations and annotations needed some jar files and that makes dependent. If you start using the Hibernate, if you start using annotations on this, then these data objects becomes persistence layer dependent. These data objects becomes persistence layer dependent. So that is the reason what I did was I created a separate data objects for domain. I created a separate data objects for Hibernate, and in the utility service I copied the data from Hibernate domain objects to data transfer objects. That is what this conversion doing. This is your array list of book type. This is your domain. This is all your domain. Your domain book object you are converted into purchased book of DTV. So you're doing some conversion, and one more thing is your controller is not going to call the Hibernate. The controller is not going to call the persistence directly. The controller is not going to call the persistence directly. Controller is going to call the service layer, and service layer is going to call the persistence layer. Service layer is going to call the persistence layer. Service layer is going to call the persistence layer, and that persistence layer will take care of all the conversions and all the stuff. Now the only concern you have is the mapping between the user object and the book object, which is a pure exception with respect to Hibernate, which is a pure exception with respect to Hibernate. So it's going to take a bit more time. So I'll just look into this and I'll fix the problem and I'll give the solution. So before we wind up for today, so I just want to look into the questions what you have. Yes.
Arun, can you show me the utility service class again and the second method of that class?
There is one method which is calling get purchased books, and from that you are invoking get books of the Hibernate DAO. See, it's very simple. Instead of doing this utility class, I can write these 2 lines of code in the controller itself. But I don't want my controller to directly depend on persistence layer. So I'm calling a service layer, whereas service layer is calling a DAO. Instead of calling this way, we can have our controller directly calling the DAO. If you see, when it comes to JDBC, I directly call DAO, right? In the same way, I can also call Hibernate DAO here. Right, but this is not, but because what exactly the architecture, right? When you see the J2E architecture, according to the J2E architecture, your controller is not going to call the persistence directly. Your controller is going to call your service layer, and that service layer is going to do the whatever you want to do on the back end.
Okay.
That's it.
How are we storing the quantity now?
No, we are not storing the quantity. So actually, if the mapping goes perfectly, then I thought of adding the quantity. So if you remember yesterday's many to many, I demonstrated. Yesterday many to many, I demonstrated there is a student class, there is a course class. Student got student ID and student name. Course got course ID, course name. Then what I told you, when you put many to many, there is one table which will be created automatically, right?
Right.
Student underscore course table, where it will maintain student ID and course ID, right? So what is student ID? This table is automatically created. We don't need to create. This table gets generated automatically. Now this automatically generated table will maintain the primary key of the first table and primary key of the second table. Since it is automatically generated, we don't have a possibility of having a third column here. See, for this example, this was perfect. There is no need of third column. But what about our example today? In our today example, you have a user ID, you have a username, you have a book, you have a book ID and book name. And there is one table which needs to get generated automatically, that is user underscore book table. Now in this user underscore book table, if I maintain user ID only and book ID, it won't be sufficient, right?
Right.
But if the table gets generated automatically, you get only 2 columns. But what do I need? I need one more extra column here, right? But how come this extra automatically generated table will allow extra column? Here the table is getting generated automatically. Since it is getting generated automatically, but I need an extra column there. So how to add that extra column? I was about to discuss. But what is happening is, this itself is not working now.
Maybe
right?
we can add that extra column in purchased book like we had it before.
No. I want Hibernate to do that.
Okay.
Because who is generating this join table? Hibernate itself is generating join table, right?
Right.
If you remember, if I show you yesterday's code, I have a many to many, and in this many to many example, I developed only 2 programs: student program, course program. Did I develop student underscore course program? No.
No.
The table was automatically getting generated. But that automatically getting generated table will allow only primary keys of both the tables.
Right.
But what exactly I need in this scenario? In this scenario, along with those 2 columns, I also need one more extra column called quantity, and I want Hibernate to take care of this. I don't want to physically do it. If I start involving, then what is the use of Hibernate?
Okay.
So I want my Hibernate to generate the table and take this extra column. So, but before I do this, first I want to do this. Let's get this first. Once I get that, it is very easy to add the extra column there. I'll show you that. I'll demonstrate that. But the problem is here. Yeah, go ahead.
Since we are using hash sets, do we need to override the equal methods in the classes of user and book?
Here the point is, are you worried about the duplicates? Are you not worried about the duplicates? Now question arises. A user purchased a book. Now, if you see, I purchased a book. Let's take this table. Okay, 2dy. User 1, book 1, he purchased 5. Now do you want to allow this? User 1, again a book 1, again 10. What do you want here? Do you want the duplicates to be allowed, or you don't want the duplicates to be allowed? He can purchase the same book another time, more copies, right?
Yes.
So am I worried about the duplicates here?
Not in the user book table, but maybe in the user and book table individually. We don't want duplicates there.
Why? Okay, then you see, it's purely your requirement. If your requirement demands there should be a duplicate, then don't override equals method. I mean, if you want to check for duplicates, if you don't want to allow duplicates, go for equals method. Override equals method and write the logic. If you are not interested, then you don't need to worry about it. See, it's purely the person who is writing the code. If in his requirement, if there is a need to avoid duplication, then override equals method and hash code.
Normally, aren't we supposed to avoid duplicates in the primary key? Like the user ID cannot be, it's not supposed to have a duplicate value, right?
See, that is what I'm telling you, right? Here, there is two things here. If you don't want to allow duplicates, you make a composite primary key of this.
Not in the user book. I'm talking about the individual classes, the user table and the book table separately. So in the
of course, right? You make user ID as a primary key. Then there is a possibility of having a duplicate for you. Now, here user ID is primary key.
Right.
If you go here, you got a user ID 1, Arun. Two, Kiran. 3, if I try to do this, do you think it is allowed?
SQL won't allow. We will get an exception.
So when your database has no data, which here there is no possibility of duplicates, right? Then there is no possibility of duplicates. Then why you want to when you are trying to store the data into the hash set, you need not to worry about the duplicates at all, right? Because from the database you are not getting any duplicates. From the database, when you are not getting any duplicates, then why you should worry about overriding the equals method and hash code method? Now that's what, right? So it's purely what you want to do, right? Now whatever the data I'm going to fetch from the database, I'm sure that there will be no duplicates. Then when I'm sure that there will be no duplicates, then why should I worry about avoiding the duplicates? I don't need to worry about it.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay.
In the first example, how it will relate these two tables, the student and course, how the Hibernate will relate by itself. Either way, we need to give the student ID in the course table or the course ID in the student table, right?
Okay. If you look at this example, you have, right, student table. You got a student ID and student name. then you are maintaining a set of course type.
Okay.
And similarly, in the course one, you are maintaining a set of student type.
Oh,
And
yeah, okay.
On top of this getter method, you are doing this annotation. And that is what it is taking care of. It is telling you with the help of annotations, we are telling that the table name is this and what columns you're going to join. You're going to join column called course ID, and course ID from which table? Course table. Student ID from which table? Student table.
Okay.
So this is where we specify. This is how we specify.
Okay, so if you are entering with the student name and the course name, it automatically join those two tables and take the student ID and the course ID?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
So
thank you.
the same concept, I try to apply it on the user and the book. Okay. And I'll come across an error call because we already have a table which is existing. So there is some issue with this. I will look into the problem and I'll fix it and help you with the solution tomorrow. Same, whatever the many to many which I did yesterday, same thing I try to apply it to the user and the book, because the user can purchase many books and each book can be purchased by many users.
Okay.
So I tried to apply it, but it didn't work. I'll look into it and I'll get back to I'll solve the problem and get back to you with the solution.
Okay. Okay, and the first one, I think it's a jar file problem, Arun. I think I got it. So if still I get the problem, I will let you tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. See, when it comes to frameworks, right, the most challenges will be with respect to the adding the correct jar file. If the version conflict happens, right, you end up in going through different things, but you will not find any solution. So it's always recommended that you download the jar from the given website, official website, and you download all the jar files of a particular version. Don't download these jar files from one version and these jar files from other version. That leads to a lot of problems.
Okay. Yeah, now it's not showing the error to the dialect method query, but still I'm working on it. Then I will let you know by tomorrow if still any problem with that.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright guys, if you have any other questions, we'll look into it.